Recognizing the chairman of the Platform Committee. All those opposed, no.
Mr. Chairman, for purposes of...
Anti-Trumper Ken Cuccinelli leading a roll call vote protest against Donald Trump in the 2016 Republican National Convention. Despite his never-Trump enthusiasm way back then, the former Virginia Attorney General has been appointed for a top immigration role at the Department of Homeland Security. The specifics of his role remain under discussion, apparently. There's little doubt that the radical Dems, the Business Roundtable, Wall Street, the Chamber of Commerce, or Horrors, if you prefer, and the Koch brothers have conspired to block President Trump's every effort to balance trade, to end enormous U.S. trade deficits, particularly with China. The globalist elites and the establishment fighting the Trump agenda at every turn and nowhere with more money and more energy than at our southern border. President Trump's close advisors are, I'm told, working to wrest control of the southern border from the powerful drug cartels that are deciding who and how many people are allowed to cross the U.S.-Mexican border. And the cartels, of course, decide how many tons, how many pounds, how many ounces and doses of deadly drugs are smuggled into the United States. In consequence, those Mexican drug cartels are deciding how many Americans will die from overdoses. Sources tell me the White House is urgently considering many approaches and options, and among them, significant strengthening of immigration and customs enforcement to begin close coordination with state and local law enforcement in bringing criminal illegal immigrants, visa overstayers, and illegal immigrants under final court order to be removed from the United States, and to vigorously enforce the Remain in Mexico policy, namely assuring that so-called asylum seekers remain in Mexico or other third-party nations until their claims are adjudicated in the United States. 90%, by the way, of those claims historically have been judged to be invalid or outright fraudulent. Joining us tonight, a man with more than 3 decades of experience in securing our border and protecting the lives of citizens and communities, former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Fox Business contributor Tom Homan joins us tonight. Tom, good to have you here. This is a moment in history where it appears we're going to watch a president of the United States decide on the security of the border and what to do against the intransigent and some would say corrupt Mexican government that is also under the sway of those drug cartels that are controlling that southern border.
Yeah, look, I've said it many times in this show. We got a great president. I've worked for 6 of them. This president's not only talked the talk, he walked the walk, and he's taking this on. If he can work this, he will secure this border at all costs. Look, he's already taken executive actions. He's already declared a national emergency. But we need to support his efforts from within, which means we talked many times. You just mentioned we need to round up those. We need to locate those who've had their due process, got a final order, and remove them. We need to show these countries there's a consequence, there's a deterrence to enter this country illegally. You can't come here and commit immigration fraud. As you said, 90% is fraud, and expect to stay and wait for the next amnesty or wait for the next DACA. We got to take these actions, and it needs to be across the nation, and we need to pull other federal agencies in so we can put a huge dent in this. We need to send a strong message to Central America. If you want to spend your life savings to come to this country and commit immigration fraud only to go home, then come get it. But I think if we do this, I did it 3.5 years ago. It works. We need to do it again. So I'm going to keep pushing that until it happens.
Yeah. With all of your experience, do you at this point find it stunning that the radical Dems, the Democratic Party, rhinos and the Republican Party, the global elites, the establishment, can't wrap their heads around the certain knowledge that that border is controlled by the cartels, that they're the ones who are deciding and profiting from the illegal immigrants that they're smuggling across the border, the deadly drugs they're smuggling across the border. Stop the cartels, you stop those drugs and those illegal immigrants crossing the border.
The criminal cartels control everything that happens on the northern border of Mexico. There isn't 1 ounce of drugs come across that border. There isn't one person that crossed that border without the blessing and the paying off, playing the the plaza fees, they call them, taxes to the cartels to operate within those areas. And that's why I've said for a long time, this isn't just about illegal immigration. This is a national security crisis because the cartels have pushed large groups of families through one area of the border so they can move their drugs and bad people, people that don't want to be arrested by Border Patrol, through other areas. It's happening, and it's been happening for a while. So what concerns me is who has entered this country illegally that's taken advantage of the crisis on the border. For instance, if you want to do harm to this country, if you are a terrorist, now, are you going to take advantage of the same system that 12 million people entered illegally? Are you going to go through database checks and come through an airport or go through a port of entry? No. You're going to take advantage of the crisis on the border where 40% of the Border Patrol assets are not working the line and enter that way. That's what scares the hell out of me.
And I think it scares the hell out of most of us, frankly. Let me turn to the president, who tweeted this out today, and I'd like to put it up if we can for the audience to see. The president said this: Mexico's attitude is that people from other countries, including Mexico, should have the right to flow into the United States, and that U.S. taxpayers should be responsible for the tremendous costs associated with illegal immigration. Mexico is wrong, and I will soon be giving a response. Your thoughts about the president's tweet?
I think he's throwing down the gauntlet. I think this president, look, he's a bulldog. People aren't going to beat him down. They attack him every day, but he's going to keep going for what he knows is right. He's doing his job as the president of the United States. He wants to secure this border. He wants to protect Americans, and no one's going to stop him from doing it. The Ninth Circuit's trying. You know, the NGOs are trying. The Democratic leadership is trying because they hate this president more. They want to secure this border, but he's not going to give up. So him throwing the gauntlet down to Mexico is the right thing to do. As we just discussed, the criminal cartels in Mexico are operating with impunity in Mexico. What are they doing about it? It's against the law of Mexico to traffic in women and children, but 1/3 of the women coming across Mexico are being sexually assaulted by the cartels. So what has the government of Mexico done to dismantle these cartels and shut them down? Because if you shut them down, you shut the national emergency down, because nothing happens while the cartels. So they're operating with impunity. Mexico hasn't done anything because law enforcement's on their payroll, some of the military's on their payroll, elected officials on their payroll. So I think the president needs to step it up with Mexico and put them on notice. We could send HSI down there and show them how to dismantle these organizations. We can also look at the remittance payments. Billions of dollars a year sent by illegal aliens working and living here illegally, sending back to Mexico. That's a big part of their GDP. Let's look at remittance payment. The president needs to hold Mexico accountable because they're lawless and they're affecting our national security.
And as the president just tweeted, he will soon be giving his response. Tom Homan, as always, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.